Hi, I'm Carol Jurgensen Sheets, aka Carol the Coach, and if you've never heard of me, let me tell you, I have a radio show on the internet called Sex Help with Carol the Coach. And in that show, I talk with sex addicts and partners about how they can get through the devastation of this disorder. You know, what I know is that if you are a sex addict, then more oftentimes than not, you carry with you a lot of shame. And there are a lot of questions about how do I manage this illness? What do I need for resources? Where can I go for help? What's right? What's wrong? And tonight we're going to be talking about one of those things. I recently was involved in a men's group whereby one of our members had a pretty significant slip. He watched pornography for 3 days after several months of sobriety. He watched the pornography and then he masturbated, but he didn't orgasm. And as a result, he was not sure that he really needed to set his sobriety date over again. Now, for anybody who is looking at this YouTube for the first time, you may not even know that people that have this condition oftentimes go to 12-step meetings and actually count the days of clean time or recovery time that they have. You got all sorts of guys. You have guys that count it with a vengeance. As a matter of fact, there are apps that count how many days, how many hours, how many minutes, and how many seconds they have of clean time. And it helps them to feel like they've gained an accomplishment. Then you have other men, and this can apply to women too, but other men who don't want to know the days. In some way that sets them up, they fear for failure. And so they would prefer just to do it a day at a time and say, you know what, today I am clean, I am sober, I am in recovery, and that's all that matters. One day at a time. Then you have another group, and this is the group that very clearly say, you know what, I have these deal-breaking behaviors. Maybe that's cheating with affair partners, sexting, webcamming, maybe it's prostitution, massage parlors, going to sites that actually allow them to engage with other people. And those are my deal-breaking behaviors, and according to the 12-step program, they are in my inner circle. And if you're not sure about the 3 circles, go back to some previous YouTubes I've done describing what the 3 circles are. In the inner circle are the deal-breaking behaviors, and in the middle circle are the slippery slope behaviors. Some men will put objectification in that middle circle. What I know to be true, and probably you do too, is that fantasy and objectification occur at any time for anybody. And yet, an addict needs to practice all the tools to manage those thoughts and those images. Yes, they may fantasize, but do they use the 3-second rule to stop the fantasy? Do they check it in their groups? Do they call somebody in the fellowship and talk about it? Do they eye bounce so that they think about other things as they're looking around the room? You get the drift. What I'm basically saying is that for many men, they will have these slips, which are temporary poor choices because they did not do things that they should have to stay clean. Or they have relapses, which occur for hours, days, weeks, or even months of unacceptable addict behavior. Now, for that third group of men, oftentimes they don't want to include all sexually addictive behaviors as deal-breaking behaviors because it is too frustrating. So they will say, well, yeah, I looked at porn, but I'm not going to restart my days. I had 380 days of deal-breaking behaviors where I was clean and sober, and the fact that I looked at porn and I masturbated that did not set me up for needing to restart my days. Interestingly enough, you have all sorts of opinions about that. I mean, when I'm talking to an addict and he's looking me in the eyes and he's saying, Carol, this is hard enough. I don't want to get discouraged and give it all up. I got to keep my clean days. My clean days are that I don't visit a prostitute. I don't go to swing clubs. And if I looked at porn or I masturbated or I orgasmed, that's not the same thing. And so I want to keep them separate. I want to say I still have my 380 days. Then we've got a whole nother group of men that say, dude, are you kidding me? When you look at porn and you masturbate and you orgasm to pornography, you light up that reward center in such a way that you set the whole sexual addiction cycle going again. Dude, you got to understand, you can't do that. And when you do, you're breaking sobriety. Okay, now you be the judge. What do you think? What rings true for you? You know, if you're in a 12-step program like SAA, you get to customize your recovery and what it looks like. And the pros to that is that there's not a one-size-fits-all, and you decide based on what you need. The cons are that oftentimes you can go into denial or use justification, rationalization, minimization, all those defense mechanisms to allow yourself to do something that absolutely contradicts sobriety. So again, you make the choice, you decide, and you know what? It's always okay to choose differently. If there's something that you thought was okay that you don't think is okay now, good for you. And if you can have a buddy, a best friend who does it differently than you, and maybe they don't count the days in the same way as you, don't let that discourage you. But I am going to say sex addiction is about rigorous honesty. And that rigorous honesty means that you need to be honest with yourself, with your fellowship, with your higher power, with your sponsor, and you have to decide, are you moving towards recovery or away from it? And that oftentimes determines a slip or a relapse. I'm Carol the Coach. I hope for more information you'll listen to my show. It's www.blogtalkradio.com/Sex Help with Carol the Coach. And you can get it free on iTunes. I'll talk to you soon.